Hey guys, you're watching Tech Edit. My name is Basil and this is a Galaxy Z Fold 7, Samsung's skinniest foldable to date. It's pretty great. I've had 24 hours with it. I've gamed on it. I've taken pictures on it and I've been using it throughout the whole of the past 24 hours and I like a lot of it. There are some things I don't like though. So let's get into it. But before I do, if you're not already subscribed to Tech Edit, please do. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the design. And this blue color is pretty darn beautiful. As you can see, catches the light just right. It's got Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the back and Gorilla Glass Victus Ceramic 2 on the front, and the frame is aluminium colorized as well. So like I said, it just looks very, very glorious, but it's also available in some other more traditional colors. You've got silver shadow, jet black, and an online only option, and that is mint. At 215 grams, this phone is very light. It's also very thin, 8.9 millimeters, which is the same as the Nothing Phone 3 for context, and when open just 4.2 millimeters. So that puts the Z Fold 7 in line with the best coming out of China from Oppo, Honor, Xiaomi, Vivo, etc. So what's exciting about it is Samsung's never done this. It's never looked at the competition and tried to compete. It's always kind of stayed in its own lane, played to the beat of its own drum, and that's been okay, I guess, because they've been the only viable option available. But now with Honor increasing foldable market share in Europe, at least, it's nice to see Samsung step up, because now people in America are going to get the kind of foldable innovation people in other parts of the world have been seeing for years. I do really like the design as well. It's very angular, it's very classical, doing something differently to other phone makers that make foldables with more curves. So it brings that S25 Ultra aesthetic to the Z Fold series, although that was on the Z Fold 6, but because that was such a chunky thing, it just didn't have the finesse. The Z Fold 7 definitely does. As far as durability goes, it's IP48 water and dust resistant. The 4 is dust actually, so that means it's a little bit dust proof, not super dust proof, but the 8 means you can completely submerge it in water, splash it in water, and it should be fine. On the subject of durability, Daniel from Zone of Tech, who's at the launch here as well, used his phone while wearing a Galaxy ring and his hand was around the back, and he ended up picking up quite a few micro scratches on his. So if you're thinking about using one of these without a case, just bear that in mind, at least on the blue version. Maybe one of the lighter colored versions won't scratch up quite so evidently. And you don't want to be using a case on a phone that is 8.9 millimeters thin and foldable. And the whole point is it's so thin. But having said that, you may want a case because this phone ain't cheap. How not cheap is it? If you're in the UK, it's £1,799. In the US, it's $1,999. So this is a very expensive phone, and that is in its 256 gigabyte starting capacity. This goes all the way up to 1 terabyte with 16 gigabytes of storage for power users, and that is eye-wateringly expensive. As far as the hinge goes, it feels quite different to the Z Fold 6. It isn't as solid and secure throughout. It isn't super springy or spongy throughout either. It's a bit of a middle ground. So the first kind of 20 degrees are quite springy. The magnet that you need to open it with is very strong. So you pull it apart, that magnet unclips, and then that part is kind of like quite smooth. And then you get to around here, and then boop, it springs down into place. Doesn't feel bad. The result seems to be, after a day with it, far less of a hinge crease, this new kind of display and hinge mechanism working together. But this is at the cost of the Wacom digitizers. So you have no S Pen on here, and that's one of the ways that Samsung made this phone significantly thinner. The inner screen is 8 inches, which is huge compared to past Z series devices, and it's also nice and sharp, 368 pixels per inch. It's an AMOLED panel, obviously Super AMOLED, 120 Hertz LTPO, so it's going to be adaptive refresh rate, all of that good stuff. And on the front, it's a 6.5 inch panel with 422 pixels per inch. So once again, nice and sharp. 6.5 inches is larger. It's wider, so it makes for more comfortable typing. And generally, I'm just enjoying the screens. But what I will say, if you're outdoors and it's hot, and the phone is hot, you're using the camera, you're using Gemini or whatever it is, the phone gets very, very dim. 2600 nits peak brightness goes out of the window, and you can struggle to make out what's on screen. This is all down to heat management, and it's understandable. I mean, just look how thin this phone is. Where's the heat gonna go? But it's a consideration if you're picking this phone up in a hot country. I'll come on to how heat is perhaps managed in an unexpectedly aggressive way when I talk about gaming a little bit later. But I'd say brightness, practically speaking, is the biggest issue at this stage. When you're outdoors and it's not crazy hot and you're not absolutely hammering the camera, the screens get very nice and bright. And even when we were taking all the photos earlier, after about 5 minutes in my pocket, not using the phone, letting it chill out a bit, it got back to its peak brightness, or a brightness that was very visible. So it isn't that it can't get bright in bright environments or hot environments. It's that I wouldn't necessarily combine hot environments with heavy camera usage or anything too processor intensive. As far as the camera goes, you've got a 200 megapixel primary camera. A 1/1.3 inch sensor is huge for a foldable. So with that camera, Samsung is actually leapfrogging the foldable competition. But then you look at the secondary cameras. The 12 megapixel ultra wide is upgraded. It now has autofocus, which is excellent to see. The 10 megapixel 3x camera, however, isn't upgraded. And as a result, I have experienced mediocre results indoors, but all three seem to perform really well outdoors in bright environments. Samsung's processing is Samsung's processing. If you have seen many tech reviews, you'll know what to expect. Very high contrast. There is quite a bit of processing going on, and also saturation. Your pictures look kind of like social media ready for WhatsApp, etc. But still, it is good for a foldable. You cut foldables a bit more slack because they have to fit camera hardware into a much more difficult form factor. What's also good is you've got a whole range of advanced shooting modes that can help you eke out even more from the camera. My favorite thing about the new upgraded sensor is the fact when you are shooting yourself with the camera, you are able to get that depth separation with that 1/1.3 inch sensor that you couldn't get on the smaller sensor on the Z Fold 6 and can't get on other foldables. So it could now be one of the best, if not the best, vlogging cameras around, framing yourself with a covered display and enjoying that large sensor and natural depth separation. So that's awesome. Detail, autofocus, all really nice and solid on the main cameras. So I lent on that very, very heavily, and video looked really good too. You've also got log video as well. So while Samsung claims this is an ultra experience as far as the camera goes, from the main camera they may be right, but not from the telephoto cameras, especially not for video when the lights drop. But lean on the main camera and you'll be absolutely laughing. What Samsung's also done, which is great, they've ditched the in-display selfie camera on the large inner screen, and instead they've opted for a punch hole camera in the top right corner. There's also a punch hole camera in the front, and they're both 10 megapixels, and selfies, vlogs from them look good. But the inner camera in particular is a huge step up for video calls, video meetings, etc., and selfies, obviously. You can also shoot 200 megapixels in really bright environments to get very, very croppable photos. And obviously, being a foldable, you can steady it on a surface and get maximum clarity from those high resolution shots. So there's plenty going for the Z Fold 7 as far as the cameras go. The Z Fold 7 runs One UI, and the big thing here isn't even One UI, it's the fact that Gemini Live works and can understand what's going on the inner display. So obviously with any foldable, you can have an app on the left, an app on the right. When you're talking to Gemini Live, sharing your screen with it, you can ask it, tell me something about the app on the left or app on the right, and talk through what's on your screen in real time and get real-time response. So if you're someone like me, you work from home, you work on your own 99% of the time, and you end up realizing that the closest working relationship you have is with AI. It could be a really handy feature for proactive brainstorming, etc. I need to try it in more detail, but I do like the idea of being able to share my screen in the context of spatial awareness on screen, being part of that natural conversation. Obviously, if you've used One UI in the past, Samsung's interface, it's very heavy, but it's very, very feature rich. Samsung's improved the customizations that you've seen on other phones, like on a Magic 7 Pro, etc. So you can resize folders to make them larger, giving you more access to applications on your home screen. They have a number of widgets that are really handy as well. So you can quick access Samsung features if you have a Samsung Ring, Samsung Watch, health features directly from your home screen, or just calendar, weather, standard useful stuff like that. And there's a Now briefing, which gives you updates on your day, recommends YouTube videos, Spotify tracks, scores from sports matches or whatever it is that you're into. Now briefing is all about that. I didn't end up using it too much when I reviewed the S25 Ultra, but I've already seen in my time with the Z Fold 7, it's a pretty different experience. It's better, it's more intuitive, it presents more useful information. So it seems to be an ever-evolving thing. So maybe give it another chance if you've written it off in the past. If you haven't used One UI in a while, there are some nice things like you can now have, for example, vertically scrolling applications drawer. I know that's nothing really new for most, but for One UI, it's pretty cool. You've got left and right pull down menus, notifications on the left and quick toggles on the right as well as a raft of AI features from object removal and generative edits. So you have lossless cropping, for example, for your images. You can also enjoy loads of language support tools. So I had this proofread an email I sent earlier, and I literally just threw a brain dump and it formatted it into an email, which was very handy. You can also have interpreter translator, and that works in phone calls as well. Record meeting notes and it will transcribe them. You get my point. Out of all of the manufacturers, Samsung has the most kitted out AI suite around. It's also really great that it's launching with Android 16, and you're still going to get an extra 7 years of OS and security updates, which future-proofs the Z Fold 7 very, very nicely. I will say, though, I'm a bit concerned about future-proofing in a couple of other respects. Firstly, storage. Of course, you can bump it up to 1 terabyte, but 256 gigabytes storage starting capacity at that price is really, really little if you are going to use this phone for 7 years. So just bear that in mind if you're a power user like me. I have been using this for 24 hours. Let me get into my phone super quickly and tell you how much storage I've used. I've installed Genshin, I've installed Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, and also Honkai Star Rail. And if I find device care, I have used 156 gigabytes just with those games and the videos and photos I've captured. So if you want to use 256 gigabytes in 7 years, be my guest, but I know I would not be able to do that. So that's one thing. The Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy with 12 gigabytes of RAM should be absolutely fine. Yes, I think Samsung should have put 16 gigabytes of RAM in all variants at this price especially, but I haven't got a problem with the chipset. What I do have a problem with is the heat management, or the throttling specifically. This phone throttles so aggressively. So in addition to the brightness I mentioned earlier, where it throttled the brightness to keep the heat down, it really throttles games as well. I couldn't run a 3D Mark throttling test because it's disabled on this early review device. But when I was playing Wuthering Waves, maxed out graphics settings 60 frames per second, and I activated my resonance liberation moves, which are the ultimates that have these really crazy, awesome animations. It was chugging after a few minutes, dropping frames left and right, and this was across the characters that I was using. And it was really noticeable, more so than on any other phone I was using. And I was doing this while the phone was open. I didn't try too much gaming with it closed. So technically speaking, you have maximum heat dissipation in this state. I didn't try it in performance mode. So check back for the full review and I'll be able to update the gaming performance. But while it can handle any game, Honkai, Wuthering Waves, and you'd expect it to at this price, I was surprised at that visually kind of like recognizable throttling taking place. So to get the phone this skinny, Samsung has clearly had to scrimp on something to do with cooling. I've put the question to Samsung, so in the full review, I will include the response that I get. But day-to-day stuff, camera use, super smooth. One UI, swipes, and all of the apps I ran that weren't crazy intensive games played back really, really nicely. So I haven't got an issue with performance until this thing gets maxed out. And that brings me on to battery, because part of my brain's thinking it's got a pretty small cell, 4,400 milliamps. And with such a small battery for a phone with such a big screen, 8 inches inside, 6.5 outside, which isn't huge, but it's not tiny. Still bigger than the Pixel 9's display, Pixel 9 Pro 6.3-inch display. With that, the throttling could be in part for battery management, to make sure that Samsung's claim that the Z Fold 7's battery lasts longer than the Z Fold 6 with its smaller screens and identical capacity remain true. I don't know. I haven't cracked this open, looked inside the code, and I couldn't if I wanted to. But it is a theory. Is it the thinness, or is it in order to preserve battery? Hopefully I'll find out a little bit more over the next few weeks of using it. But before I did, I just wanted to give you some quick early impressions of the Z Fold 7. A really, really awesome step forward that brings the fight to brands that have constantly been bringing the fight to Samsung. And for the first time in a long time, it looks like Samsung is absolutely holding its own. What do you think of the Galaxy Z Fold 7? Is it the Samsung foldable that you've been longing for, or is it a big swing and a big miss? Let me know in the comments section below, and if you've got any questions about it, I will be holding on to this as well as the Z Flip 7 and doing my full review in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.